Now let's talk about price floors. Let's say in some market, the equilibrium price is $8 and the quantity is 500. And if we have a price floor, now that's a bare minimum price that you need to set. So you can't go any below that price. So here, what if the government set a bare minimum price of $10? Notice that this is a binding price floor because it's above our current equilibrium. So if we have to set a price of at least $10, we're going to have to raise our price from 8 up to 10. And when we do that, now the demand is going to be only 400, and the supply, though, is going to be 600. Because at that higher price, if you look at that point at a price of 10, people want to supply 600, but people only demand 400. So now here you have what's called a surplus of goods, meaning extra leftover goods. No relation, by the way, to the word consumer and producer surplus. Those are areas measured in dollars. This surplus is extra leftover unsold items because of a price floor. So no relation there, but in ceilings, as we saw earlier, just cause shortages, but floors, price floors, cause a surplus of goods. But either way, notice that the equilibrium quantity went down because here out of these two, again, you can't force anyone to buy or sell. So here, if only 400 items are demanded, only 400 will be transacted in the market. So the equilibrium quantity is only this much. And so here, what happens is the new consumer surplus is now, instead of this triangle, it's only this much because now it's above 10 instead of above 8. But the producer surplus is this trapezoid now. So compared to what it would have been before, which is this much, compared to that, without any floor, now that they're getting $2 more, they kind of are this much happier. They have this much more surplus, but they did lose a little bit. So producer surplus could go up or down. I mean, ideally it goes up, right? That's the only reason a government would impose a price floor, is to have somebody better off, because again, the consumers are definitely worse off. There's a deadweight loss, so the ideal goal is to have the producer surplus go up, but it's theoretically possible for it to go down if this area ends up being more than how much it goes up by. Now, one common example where they use price floors in the real world is actually a weird market called the labor market. The reason it's weird is because for the first time now, the demand, if this was, let's say this was the labor market. So if this is the labor market, that means it's the market for workers. So it's weird, but now for the first time, the businesses, instead of being the supply curve, are the demand curve. So the demand curve are the firms. Because the businesses are the ones, they're the customers, they're the ones paying for hours of work, and the suppliers are the workers, right? An employee at Pizza Hut, for example, is a supplier in the market of labor. They're supplying the labor, and Pizza Hut, they're the customer. They're the ones paying the worker. They're the customer. So let's say we have, in the labor market, this equilibrium, the free market equilibrium is $8. The price of labor is 8. In the labor market, there's actually a specialized name for that equilibrium price, and that's called wage. Wage is the price of labor. And a price floor in that labor market, that price floor would be called minimum wage. So that's what minimum wage really is from an economics perspective. Minimum wage is a price floor on the labor market. And once you impose that price floor of, let's say, $10, what you're going to get then is that businesses demand fewer workers, right? If you owned a business and you used to pay $8 an hour to people and you hired 500 of them, well now, if you have to pay $10 an hour, you're going to demand fewer workers. You're probably going to have less room in your budget. So you're going to demand fewer workers. But now, if you're an employee, and if you can now get $10 an hour instead of 8, well, you're going to want to work more. And so that's why the supply of labor actually goes up, even though the demand goes down. So you're going to have then a surplus of workers who don't have a job, and that surplus has a specialized name in the labor market. That is called unemployment. So if you were talking about the labor market, unemployment is the name for that surplus of workers.